Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to our sixth Shar Bitochon class with Dvorley and Druzier. I'm Chai Ben Shimon, your host. We always like to start off with giving because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. So let's give generously so Hashem will give us generously. I'm going to put some coins in the tzedakah box. We're dedicating this class in merit for all the hostages to be free and in honor of Raphael Ben Dvorleah. Hashem should keep him safe and all the Chayalim and Chayalot safe and the IDF. He is a commander and also Dvorleah's son. We're going to start off with Psalm Chaf, Kapitel Chaf. It's really important to pray and help the hostages in any way that we can, and we need to do it from home spiritually. So let's do it together. Lam natseach mizmar leDavid yancha Adonai b'yam sarah yisagevcha shem Elohei Akayv yishlach ezracha mikaydesh umitzian yisadecha yizkar kol min chaysecha v'elascha yidash nesela yitain lacha chilvav v'chol atascha yimalei Ranana b'shuasecha v'shem Eloheinu nidgal yimalei Adonai kol mishalasecha ata yadaiti ki Yeshia Adonai mishicha yanehu mishmei kachai b'gurai seishai minai Ela v'recha v'ela v'asusim v'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir Hema karu v'nafalu v'anachnu kamnu v'nisaydad Adonai Yeshia hamelech yanenu v'yam karenu. I'm now going to introduce to you Dvorley and Druzier, who is an addiction recovery coach and a Shar HaBitachon enthusiast. Welcome, Dvorley, to our sixth Shar Bitochon series.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back here teaching. So I want to just start with, before we launch into the book, I do a couple of live classes weekly here in Miami. And one of the groups that I taught yesterday, one of the girls who definitely struggles, like we all do on some level, everyone has struggles. And the bitachon that she is learning is very much an intellectual bitachon. Slowly, it's starting to permeate, but she's having a hard time. So in our class, she shared that there was an absolute miracle that she saw happen and that she 100% attributes it to learning Shar Bitochon and finally starting to make that mind, heart, soul connection. So I said to her, the miracle is amazing. And thank God that you had that miracle. It was a beautiful miracle. But the more important thing for me is that you had the awareness, because you are creating a God consciousness and a Bitochon consciousness. It's alive inside of you. And when you saw that miracle, you saw it to be the miracle that it was. Because so often we see miracles, and because we're so used to everything working within nature, we just chalk it up to, oh, isn't it cool how that happened? Isn't that a great coincidence, how it all worked out that way? And anytime someone says something to me like that, post October 7th, I'm like, no, not cool at all. Hashem. This gentleman called me and he said, I'm so sorry for calling you without you even knowing who I am. But I was at an airport and there was a gentleman having a conversation with another gentleman. And it sounded like a conversation that I was interested in. So I went over to them and told them what I was doing in Miami. And they said, you must reach out to Dvorley and Druzier if this is what you want to do. So here I am. And he said, how amazing how it all worked out. Isn't that cool? And I said to him right there and then, yeah, it's amazing, but it's not cool. And it's not happenstance. It was exactly laid out the way that it needed to be. You had to overhear that conversation. You had to be comfortable to go ahead and join. And then they shared with you to reach out to me. So the more that we trust, the more that we see the bigger miracles. And I'll just give you a little brief personal is firstly, thank you to all of those who have been praying and saying Tehillim for my son. He went into Rafiach last Saturday night, and he said he'll probably be out today. So yesterday I was on my way home with my daughter, and she said to me, Mommy, are you miterageshet? Are you like emotional that Rafa is going to be coming out of Gaza tomorrow? And I said to her, actually, I'm not. Because with Army, you know, they say a lot of things. It's not exactly the way that they always say it. He may not come out tomorrow. And I said to her, just like off the cuff, out of my mouth, and he may even come home today. So I'm just going to wait for the moment. We came home at about an hour later, and I checked my phone messages, and my husband had written, Rafa doesn't have his phone yet, but he's out of Gaza. So what does that mean for me? Whether he would have come out yesterday or today or tomorrow or in a week from now, my bitachon has to stay strong regardless. When I see the open revealed miracles, and also when I don't see the open and revealed miracles. But when we do see something that is clearly outside of nature, what I like to do is tell the story. So firstly, I'm hearing the story out loud in my own voice. So often when we're sitting opposite someone, a therapist, a mashpia, and you sit down with them, and you're like, I have this issue, and you start to share the issue, and the person on the other end is being an active listener. And very often you'll say, oh my goodness, thank you so much. You're amazing. I know exactly what I need to do. And the mashpia or the therapist will say, like, all I said was good morning. So when we sometimes have to hear ourselves, I also like to do for myself, and I suggest this to others, is when we have a moment of clear miracle, I see Hashem, there's no other way to explain it, write it down. And then the next time you're in a dark space or you're dealing with a specific challenge and you're like, how am I going to get through this? Wait a second. I have a frame of reference. This happened before. Maybe not the exact same challenge, maybe not the exact same situation, but I've been in crisis before, and Hashem was able to do what I needed to pull me out of it. I can do this again. This is something that I've already done. So what we're doing is we're building a bitachon muscle memory. Now, the first time that you go to a gym and you're doing bicep exercises, you're lifting maybe 2 pounds, and it's hard. Your body doesn't know what to do. You're learning the form. Another couple of weeks in, you're increasing the weight. So you're never complacent. You're always getting stronger and stronger, but it's no longer a need for you to teach your body the movement that it needs because it already has a muscle memory. The same exact thing holds true for bitachon. The more we feel it, the more muscle memory we have. And whether we're in the beautiful parts of our life or the life challenging parts of our life that are seemingly difficult and are difficult, but underlying on some level are good for us, that we are able to build that muscle memory and then tap back in. So I'm going to go back to probably approximately 25 centuries ago in Persia. The Jewish people were threatened with genocide. When Ahasuerus was king and Haman was his wicked advisor, he reigned over the majority of the world. So when there was a threat for mass genocide, it wasn't just the Jewish people who lived in Shushan, it was the Jewish people worldwide, because the world was smaller than it is now, and Ahasuerus really was in control of that world. So in the Gemara on Megillas Esther, there's a conversation between the disciples, students, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Who was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? We just celebrated Lag Bomer. He was the author of the Zohar. So the students asked Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, why were the Jewish people deserving of genocide? So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai responds to them because he saw in them that they had picked up on something. And he said, why don't you tell me the answer? So they answered and they said, well, probably because they celebrated in the feast of Ahasuerus. So that's why there was a mass genocide. So Rabbi Akiva responds to them and he says, if you say that it's because they were participating in Ahasuerus' feast, then what about all the Jews that were outside of Shushan? They did not participate in the feast. So then they say to him, okay, well, then we need you to give us the answer. And he starts with as follows. In those times, what did the Jewish people do? They put their trust in Ahasuerus. So when he invited the Jewish people to their feast, what he was essentially saying is, if you don't come to my feast, you're in danger. We're disrespecting the king. So they chose to go to the king and to go to that party that he had, that week-long party. Is going to a party of all types of inappropriate behaviors worthy of genocide. So we could say, well, The utensils that they used were the utensils from the Beis Hamikdash. There were all kinds of crazy, horrific orgies going on, everything inappropriate. But there are bigger sins than that. How is it that they were decreed for genocide for this Avera? So then, so is participating in this awful, horrible party worthy of genocide? We know that there are many worse sins than that the Jewish people were not designated for the entire people to be killed. This was the first time in nature outside of the flood of Noah and that came from Hashem, that our enemies wanted to do a complete genocide of the Jewish people. So firstly, how were the Jewish people able to do Teshuvah for the sin that they did? Because there are certain sins that you can't do Teshuvah for, and one of them is serving other idols. We have to give up our life. We have to be Mesiras Nefesh, give up my life if someone asks me to bow down to or serve another god. So how were the Jewish people able to do Teshuvah? Because we know that they were able to do Teshuvah because we have the beautiful miracle story of Purim. So what the rabbis explain is that although they were essentially taking the crown off of Hashem and putting it on Ahasuerus and saying, he is the one who is controlling us, he is the one that we need to be subservient to, in their hearts, they were able still, although they acted in one way, their belief internally remained intact. Internally, they still were able to tap into what we spoke about very early in the beginning of the class, the difference between bitachon and emunah, that reservoir of faith that Hashem has given to every single one of us. And they internally, although they went to the party and they enjoyed the party, internally they were still connected with God. So they were able to do Teshuvah for this. So not only did they go to the party, but they actually enjoyed the party. So now I'm going to bring in a short little parable of what the Rebbe talks about this. So they go from celebrating a party to completely, it says that they completely turned their backs on Hashem. Now, the Rebbe brings in a story of Hadrian the Caesar. There were 5 Caesars that were decent to the Jews, and Hadrian is known to be one of them. He was the debater for the Bar Kokhba revolution. Now, there was a war in Judea. Judea was Israel, and it was laid to waste, and millions of Jews were killed. During that time, Hadrian renamed Judea, and he started to call it Palestine. That was when the first word Palestine came up, and he renamed it Palestine because he wanted to remove any claim that the Jewish people could have to Israel. And that's where we still have the name of Palestine from today. So this Hadrian goes and he has a conversation with Rabbi Yehoshua. And he says to him, he's a very knowledgeable man. He studies all the different religions. And he says, I don't understand. I want to understand. How is it that this sheep that lies in the pasture with 70 hungry wolves, how is he so impressive? What he was really asking is, here we are, the Jewish people, one tiny little nation. We're less than 0.2% of the world's population. And everybody, every news channel, every social media, who are they talking about? The people who are then less than 2%. So when he was talking about this sheep lying amongst 70 wolves, the Jewish people are the sheep, and the 70 wolves are the big nations of the world that are out to destroy us, to hate us, to incite violence towards us. So Rav Yoshua answered him, and he said to him, the sheep is not so impressive. The shepherd is impressive. The shepherd is the one who is able to protect his people. And without our shepherd, this little sheep amongst 70 wild wolves, the 70 nations of the world, would destroy us. The continued existence of the Jewish people is miraculous. It's irrational. All of the generations past who tried to destroy us, they no longer are in existence. And yet here we are, which is completely outside of nature. We should not still exist. So what was the reason for the genocide? Is that the entire population of the world turned their backs on Hashem and placed their trust in a human entity, the king. So the choice is ours. Everything we use in life, anything that I use in life, my computer, my telephone, my oven, everything needs to be plugged in to a source. Our source that we plug into with Hashem is our bitachon. So a lot of people will say to me, I'm going to learn bitachon. It sounds beautiful and I really want peace and serenity in my life. But first I need to do X, Y, and Z. And I said to them, why don't you try this? While you're working on X, Y, and Z, spend 10 minutes a day learning bitachon. Because what bitachon will do is help you with all of the other things that you're struggling with. Because once we have this awareness that there is an entity that cares for us, and I will repeat this over and over again, whether we're deserving or not, whether we feel deserving or not, Hashem is taking care of us every moment. Each one of us. There are days that some of us could feel like little insignificant me. Hashem is paying attention to me. Yes, each one of us are a beloved child of Hashem, and he only does what's good for us. So now this is obviously the story of Purim and Megillas Esther. And what happened with Esther? When Haman went and told Esther that she needed to go and meet with Ahasuerus to turn over this horrible decree that Haman had gotten permission from the king to do. What does she do? For 3 days before she goes into the king, she fasts. So we know that fasting brings us closer to Hashem, and we're not focusing on anything external or physical. We're deeply in tune with ourselves. But what does a woman, a queen, normally do before she's going to meet the king? She wants 3 days of preparation. What is she normally doing? She's at the spa, she's having her hair colored, she's getting a manicure and pedicure. She wants to look her best because that was her best asset. What did Ahasuerus choose her for? Nothing other than her beauty. He wasn't looking for all of her beautiful character traits. He was a very vulgar king, and all he cared about was beauty. So by fasting for 3 days, what was Esther saying? Hashem, I see you. I am giving up the biggest asset that I have, which is my beauty. I'm going to not eat for 3 days. I'm going to go into the king looking weak. And it's told that Esther had an olive complexion, weak and tired, and not in my best form where he wants to respond to me, because I am firmly saying I am putting my trust in you, Hashem, and not in Ahasuerus. So each day we have an opportunity, we have choices to make. I can continue to do things the way that I've done them till now, or I can try something different. We take a small pause, and that small pause actually, when we change the behavior, what we're doing is creating new neural pathways in our brain that also become a muscle memory. So the first few times I'm doing something differently, it's an avoida for me. I have to think about it quickly, right? There's something happens in the home. My initial reaction would be to cry, scream, yell, whatever it is that we normally do. I take a very quick pause and I say, this doesn't work. Let me try this healthier way. Those new neural pathways become easier and easier because you're changing your brain process. Okay. So also, I just wanted to say thank you all. Oh, I did say that. Thank you all of you who have been praying for my son. Gratefully, he is out of Gaza. Now, when he was going in, I said to him, I'm going to say something that I haven't said to you the entire time that you've been in the war, because gratefully we have many lone soldier chats. I'm in 2. One is called Lone Soldiers, and the other is called the Rebbe Soldiers. One is a Chabad group, and one is just a worldwide group. And every couple of weeks, they have therapists come on to tell us how to communicate with our children, what to say, what not to say, what to ask, what not to ask. And obviously, we're not supposed to share any of the challenging, difficult things that we see. So I picked up the phone and I said to him, I'm not supposed to say this to you, but there are soldiers dying in Gaza every single day, and I do not want you to die. And he said to me, Mommy, I don't want to die either. I have a whole life ahead of me with many things that I need to accomplish. But you are learning and teaching Shara Bitochon. So you essentially have to pray for all of my siblings exactly the same way that you're praying for me. Because when it's our time, it's our time. So it took me a moment and I was so grateful. First of all, he reeled me right back into where I needed to be. But in addition, it made me feel really good because the messages that I am implementing are having an absolute effect on my family. So I do want to say too, while I said that when there are people outside of us who are struggling, is not the time to say, you're going through this, but it's really good for you. Hashem only does what's good for us. That's insensitive and the wrong thing to do. Our bitachon is for us, and hopefully it has that ripple effect on the people around us. But this is definitely something that you should be sharing with your husbands and your children, because implementing a bitachon consciousness from an early age will save them from so much difficulty. High school, middle school, bullying, friendships, connection, communication. Our kids have a very hard time. The world is a difficult place to navigate. And if they implement this bitachon and they have it flourishing inside of them, their lives and their trajectory of their lives will be that much simpler and more peaceful. So where we are continuing today is in the last class, we were talking about the difference between an alchemist, having the job of an alchemist, and putting our complete trust in Hashem, and how in each different perspective, bitachon in Hashem far supersedes anything else. So we're on page 21 on the, actually we're on page 22. We did the 7th, we're up to the 8th manner, so it's 22 on the top. Okay, so I'm reading from the book now. The 8th manner in which a person who has bitachon is superior to the alchemist is that the alchemist is unable to remain in one place out of fear that his secret will be revealed. On the other hand, a person who trusts in God is secure, living in his land, and has peace of mind living in the place in which he lives, as it is written, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and be nourished by faith. Similarly, it says, the righteous will inherit the land and dwell forever. This is very self-explanatory. It's just, if I really trust in God, I don't need to be traveling all over the world. The alchemist has to move from time to time because he's afraid someone might discover his secret recipe and then he will be out of business. The 9th manner in which the person who has bitachon is superior to the alchemist's alchemy will not accompany him in the end of his days, in the world to come. Even in this world, he will gain nothing other than freedom from poverty and from reliance on other people. Conversely, the person who trusts in God finds that the reward for his trust will accompany him both in this world and the world to come, as it is written. But one who trusts in the Lord, kindness will accompany him. Similarly, it says, how abundant is your goodness that you have hidden for those who fear you. So the alchemist, he's able to make money, but we know that when we are no longer, when our neshama leaves us and we go into the ground, we take absolutely nothing with us. All that we take with us are the good deeds, the charity, anything that we did that was positive to help light up our world, we take with us. Everything else no longer exists and no longer has importance. So with this trust in Hashem, I take that with me. That has been navigating my life. It's causing me to want to be more connected to Hashem. So I could share with you that as I started learning, we finished the Shara Bitochon, and my cousin, I said to her, all right, next time. The Rebbe said 3 or 4 times. And she said to me, no, we'll learn something else. Now you're going to go teach it. And To tell you a little bit about myself, I was not a public speaker. I did not like big groups. I would teach maybe 2 or 3 people. And post October 7th, I stepped very much out of my comfort zone. And I said to her, you know what? Yeah, I'll teach it. The next day, someone from our community reached out to me and said, hey, will you teach a Shar Bitochon class? So I was like, okay, Hashem, you set it up for me. So what is happening for me now is I feel both a shedding of self and an evolution of self. The shedding is the parts of me of the things that I like to do that weren't maybe fully aligned with Torah. You know, we're all lax in little things here and there. And the shedding and the evolution is that now I was very much a person of Nasa Binishma. We told Hashem, we're accepting the Torah. We're going to spend the rest of our lives in Nishma trying to understand. And I was very much a person who, if I understand it and it makes sense, I will do it, and I will do it beautifully. If it doesn't make sense to me, I don't know why I'm doing this mitzvah. Today, I can say that because of this trust that I have in Hashem, if I trust God, that He's taking care of every aspect of my life, how can I not do what He wants from me? And if we truly dissect what Hashem wants of us, every positive mitzvah that He gives us is actually good for us, good for our mental health, good for our emotional health. Keeping Shabbos, who else just gets to disconnect completely from the world for 25 hours that you can't be distracted? You are with your people. So I'm hoping and I believe that this is going to happen for everybody as they start to make that connection. And this is a beautiful place to be. So we're going to finish today lesson 6, and we will continue. Looking forward.
Thank you, Devorah Leah. That was wonderful. We are going to conclude now with a quote of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and here goes. The Rebbe wrote to someone facing hardships in a certain area of their life, when one finds extraordinary difficulty or obstacles, this in itself is often a sign that the thing desired is very worthwhile. That's something that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said in the excerpts of a letter dated 20 Cheshvan 1964. Now, everything the Rebbe said, he said, anything that I said is either quoted by writing or with my mouth. So everything is out there. It's incredible. We do this class in memory of our dear grandmothers, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda, and Devorah Leah's grandmother, and a special person in my life, Rachel Bela Bas Shneir Zalman. I hope you're proud. I also want to request that everyone should please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chaya Mink, CHAYAMINK. There's over 100 classes of people sharing their life journeys and stories, and all the recordings of the Shar Bitochon. We'd also love feedback, so please share it with us. Thank you so much. Looking forward to our 7th class coming up shortly.